Hello everyone, hey, good evening and welcome to another episode of The Front. My name is Mike Phillips and I will be your host. We are here for another live leadership lesson from the front right now. I have a really special guest with me tonight. She is absolutely awesome that I'm going to bring on here in just a moment. Before we do that, all the formalities, please do me a favor. If you would like some free sales training, motivational content, leadership tips, check out the website at leadtheteam.net. Also, if you would go to leadtheteam.tv, make sure you subscribe there so you get notified every time that I'm going live or that I'm uploading new videos. I would love to have you be a participant and join me in that. So we are going to get started with Miss Elise Kephart right after this.
Thanks for tuning in to Lead the Teams, The Front.
Yes, that's right. Here we are right over here to my left. Elise, how are you doing this evening?
Oh man, I'm doing fantastic. It's just been an amazing week this week. I'm out of town, so that's the hotel, but I'm doing great.
Good for you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join me and our viewers this evening and sharing some of your knowledge on leadership and automotive, and especially women in leadership. You're in a unique position there, and you are awesome at it. So as we get started, for those of you that are just tuning in, I know I have people that are in all different facets of business. Elise Kephart is the founder of the Elise Kephart Experience. That all makes sense. She does automotive BDC training, sales training, business building. You're involved in some different areas of leadership, women in automotive. I mean, she's all of that in a bag of chips. So not to steal your thunder from you, if I could, Elise, do me a favor, just give everybody that's watching, take maybe 2 or 3 minutes, share a little bit about who you are, what your business background is, how you got started, and then what you're doing right now.
Awesome. So, well, first off, thank you so much for having me. We were just talking before the show, just that when we met in person a year ago in Colorado, you know, you were telling me about this, and so it's really awesome to be here. So in short, again, you introduced myself. My name's Elise. I guess when people ask me first thing of what I am, you know, I'll talk about what I do in my business a little bit later. But first off, I just have to say, like, I love being a mom. That's kind of the root of what I think pushes me a lot, you know, is being a mother. But my company is focused, as you had mentioned, on training business development centers, internet salespeople, and it's really focused on giving the experience, really replicated off of, you know, when I sold cars, the experience to your potential customers or customers to, you know, just set yourself apart, get engagement, ultimately, you know, schedule more, if you want to call it, schedule more, you know, trusted appointments. And, you know, aside from all of that, when you get somebody's business, really holding on to it. I mean, so that's kind of what it's based around. Video, email, obviously, is a huge part of something that I teach in that as well. But gosh, sometimes and you gave me the questions ahead of time, I know, but I guess that's it. That's it in short.
That's okay. Hey, listen, no, I think, you know, you and I, what's so cool to me is I think you and I have been connected for probably 8 or 9 years when you were on the sales floor, right? And you were pioneering video email. And
yeah.
I was picking your brain and like your scripts, the way you handled things, just absolute perfection. So I've followed you for some time, and then especially it was really exciting for me to be able to meet you a year ago also. So one of the things I should have, and I didn't realize this, and I'm catching you off guard, I should have introduced you as Elise Timberlake.
I just have to shout out, my grandma's watching right now, so my grandma's on. I just got the little notification that my grandma's here, so I gotta say hi to her.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit. What's the story behind the Elise Timberlake experience?
Oh, okay. So the Elise Timberlake. Well, you know, it was. I've always. I mean, you can backtrack to like the junior high school days when NSYNC was like. I've always been just a huge Justin Timberlake fan. Like so much to the degree that even when I sold cars, one of my customers knew that I was like such a huge fan. So they had their son after they bought a car from me, make me this Justin Timberlake, what would you call it? I guess like just a painting, and it's like 3 feet by 3 feet. And that just kind of transformed into, you know, when I made the transition from retail into what I do now, you know, I'm on the phone call like a BDC agent, like an internet salesperson, pretty much on a daily basis. So
right.
I obviously can't put my Elise Kephart, Elise and I out there, because in one Google search, you're going to figure out everything that I teach, everything that I do. So I actually, in the beginning, that you're going to find this funny, when I first started masking my name, I kind of wanted it to be a little bit of just a stereotype joke. And so initially, before Timberlake, it was actually Elise Chang, just to sort of fit that whole thing. And then when I did when I masked myself for an independent dealership in Indianapolis, you know, the dealer told me, he's like, you know, Chang isn't really, we're not really in that type of community. You know, you might want to pick more of like an American name. So I was messaging him on Facebook. I said, could I use Timberlake? And he's like, yeah, Timberlake will work. So I've just stuck with that sense. You know, maybe one day Justin Timberlake it'll catch his attention, but you know, I'm just kind of waiting for that day. So that's how that kind of sprung about. But I use the name Elise Timberlake when I'm, you know, even though I don't sell cars anymore, even though I don't work in a BDC anymore officially, it's my alias, I guess, my Slim Shady from Elise Kephart.
Speaking of Slim Shady, that's one of the things, and I mentioned this before when we were talking, that I think is really cool, because working in a BDC, people are auditory, right? We've all done it. Anybody who's out there, we have several people that are watching right now, they're in BDCs, and all day long you're sitting behind a computer and you're humming along to the music. And what happens is you start making up your own words. And one of the things that is so cool that you've done, at least in the last year or two, you probably did it before, you've done what all BDC managers want to do, and you've actually put your own words to it and put some music videos. So share a little bit about that.
Well, I think I even might have made a post about it a couple of years ago. I remember I was traveling, and I was making the trip from San Francisco airport back to my hometown, which is, you know, 4 hours. And I was just listening to music, and exactly as you said that, like, you start to hear some of these songs. Like, for me, a lot of times if it's like a heartbreak song or like a breakup song, it started getting me think, like, that's how I feel when I'm on the phone or nobody's picking up their phone, or, you know, I started to think of just all these little scenarios. And so, so I actually have a friend that I've known that since about high school, and we've been friends for a while, but I think he's on the stream right now. His name's Ryan, but he would put just his own raps and kind of music stuff on his page. So it wasn't until like this year, and it was so funny. It wasn't until this year I said, hey, and I kind of messaged him out of the blue. I was like, if I give you like a topic or something like to rap about, do you think you can make a song? And knowing him now, like at the time, he was like, yeah, maybe. I'm kind of busy. It might take me a while. And I was like, you know, at that point, I was like, oh, it's not a rush, just like whenever. And then probably next day, he sends me this text. He says, check your email. And that was the first song that we did. It was about my business. It was called EKX. Right. And then from there, it just developed us into doing it for my business, and now kind of utilizing that same mentality for dealerships. So as far as something creative that's going to grab, whether it's my business and to my audience, or whether it's you're a BDC agent or a dealership and it's to your consumer, to your audience, you know, it's all about getting attention, being you know, standing out from the crowd, being a little different. So, and so, yeah, that's just kind of how that developed. And I guess it's with everything that I do, I guess why not be different? You know, why not just do something that's out of the norm a little bit? And we have fun doing it. And now it's kind of turned into a little, you know, into something that we provide for my clients. So and in a very short period of time, it's grown to be pretty big. So it's exciting, and we have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And the not only the beats aren't bad, the lyrics aren't bad. It's one of those where, in my mind, you know, and you said his name was Ryan, so if he's watching it, it's like you give him 3 words. You're like, okay, you've got credit, you've got test drive, and you've got appointment show. Bring it, right?
he's not from the car business, so it's the translation of how I try to explain things to him, right. Or he can even just look at a website and translate the website into something kind of catchy. So it's, but yeah, he's exactly like that. I could just give him a topic and he'll put it together. He's really good at it. Yeah.
Okay, so moving into this show is live leadership lessons, and so one of the things, because you are somebody that is on the forefront, you're on the forefront on the floor in automotive dealerships, you're on the forefront in a lot of areas, in video and phone BDC training and so forth. So if there was one single thing, so here's some of the questions that I prep you for. If there was one single thing that you are known for right now, maybe two things, right? And maybe you already answered this at the beginning, but just real quick, what one or two things would people stop and go, yep, that's Elise?
Genuine. Genuine.
Okay.
Yeah, genuine in the sense that, I think kind of like when I look back, when I was younger, if people that know me now versus when I was much younger, I don't want to say it's polar opposite, but I think for the longest time for me, I was really, really shy, like really kind of boxed in my own shell, if you want to call it.
Sure.
And but then I can't explain exactly why it happened or how it happened, but especially getting into the car business, that really allowed me to sort of come out of my box, not to be somebody that I'm not, but above all, especially in this industry, just being genuine, with everything that you do. And I think at the end of the day, being genuine, you're going to attract other good, genuine people to do business with you or to associate yourself with, and I think that's what it's all about. So there's a lot of things that I like. Maybe second, a lot of people say that I overwork and that I'm a hustler and all that stuff, but I mean, that's, I guess, behind all that, I think genuine would be the best thing.
That's good. So let's, I would agree with that. As I've gotten to know you over the years, know you as sort of a pen pal or a Facebook friend, and then actually getting the opportunity to meet.
I just want to say, I have to share this with you real quick, sidetrack.
Sure.
I find it so, I tell my husband, I'm like, I feel like so nerdy sometimes because where I live, it's like my family and our family, and my husband has a couple friends, and then Ryan lives where I live, but I don't.
Sure.
I feel like all of my people that are over Facebook, we've only met once or twice or a handful of times at conferences, but those are the people that I like, a handful of people that are some of my people that I relate to.
Closest friends.
So, but yeah,
that's the circle of five, right?
Automotive nerd. I don't know how you would rate that, because I mean, what do you tell? All my people that I hang with are online. But
yeah. It's like what was it? Year in the '90s, like ICQ, right? The chat rooms, oh hey, we're gonna go hang out with the homies on. What are you doing Friday night? Well, we're gonna go hang out in this Facebook Messenger group. Sounds awesome, right?
Yeah, I know,
okay.
Right?
Okay, so let me ask. What's that?
I said I got off track there.
No, that's fine. I think you're right. So let's talk about, as far as leadership roles. You engage with and experience a lot of people that are in key leadership roles in different businesses, primarily automotive, but you're interacting with people that are GMs, GSMs, dealer principals, right? High level people. You are interacting also, here's on a different level, other vendors, right? Other businesses that are high level people. So as you've had an opportunity to do that for the last however many years, because I know you've been engaged with different people for a number of years at that level, what would you say, what would you pick up on that you'd say, you know what, these three characteristics are really good leadership qualities for people to have?
The biggest thing is and we hear it a lot in automotive is practicing what you preach. I think in that manner, with a lot of stuff that I train, I want to make sure that the GM and the dealer and the sales manager and the BDC director and so forth, that it's from the top down. it's not just, hey, let's do this, but it's preached, but it's practiced and preached by not just the people that you expect to do it, right, but that you're doing it as well. So, I think another thing is, as far as a leadership role is, I think a lot of sometimes people struggle with that solution of, is it better sometimes to take away or punish or to to promote or to praise, and
you're talking like promote in public or praise in public and chastise in private.
Yeah, I think with something like that, I'm always a little. I've never been, and luckily, when I worked retail, I never worked at a store where, where it was super crazy. Some of the stories I hear, like just crazy stuff going on in sales meetings. I never really had to go through that, but right, chairs being thrown and things like that.
Sure.
But I guess the way that I look at it is, even when I do training, I try and do training and I try and teach things in the same way that if that would help me absorb the information, but also get excited about it, and I think that's sometimes a thing where, in automotive, and that's most of my audience, sometimes it doesn't come from the top down, and I think that's a pretty crucial part. And then I think I think a lot has to do, and Gary Vaynerchuk has talked about this too, like all the social media platforms that we have today. There's so much that you can do with it, not to like promote, but I think what's gotten me in front of a lot of dealers and a lot of dealer groups and so forth at this point is, I didn't just, this wasn't just something that I started a year ago, and you can track literally probably on social media, right, from today moving back the last almost 10 years, when I was selling cars and when I was, everything that I think that's what aligns it so well. Everything that I teach and train on now and install comes from like when it was really happening, and when it was building, making me successful when I sold cars and when I did that. And so people see, like, I get calls all the time sometimes, and they'll tell me, they'll say, I've been following you on years on social, or, I was watching your stuff way back when you were selling Hondas, and I it's not like I've been pitching to these people the whole time, right? But I guess just through that whole thing of documentation and not just pitching and selling, but I think as a whole, I don't advertise everything on social, but I like people to see me as a person, not just all business, but with just things that I love about life, my kids and things like that. So documentation, I think, is a big thing as well. But the biggest thing above all is just that practice what you preach. It's not just in automotive retail, but social media. I mean, you see it. It's
in any business
sometimes.
No, I think absolutely. I think you're right. Practice what you preach. Be able to perform the things that you're asking your people, right? I mean, I think that's something that's unique about you. You are still actively, when you go into a store, because you do document it, you're actively on the phone. I think the second thing you said was, is it better to promote in private, or promote and praise in public versus coaching, we'll call it coaching in private, right? And then and then the third you said is Gary V with doing the documenting. And I think there's a lot of advantage to somebody being able to document their journey. And I think maybe where you're going with it, if I'm off base, correct me, but I think you have a lot of people in leadership roles that don't do the third one. I appreciate what you're saying, like with top-down leadership, you have to be able to practice it and all those things. I absolutely agree with you, but I think once people are in a leadership role, like a position that you're in, a lot of them get away from documenting and displaying and still doing those things all the time. Right.
Yeah, it's but at the same time, I mean, I've this last year I could think of, Glenn Lundy and,
Yep.
The whole that's awesome, and
It's an automotive phenomenon.
I love that he's a general manager of like the biggest used car dealership in the country. I love his stuff. And that is, he does exactly sort of that same thing. He documents a lot. And especially like kind of seeing especially if you're in automotive, like everything that makes that store so successful, the culture of it just has always really intrigued me, what he has going on over there.
Sure.
So,
no, I agree with you on that. I'm going to catch you flat-footed on one because maybe I'll add this to my repertoire of questions, but I just thought of this one. What would you say is one of the things in leadership when you're interacting with these people that they claim it, they say we do this, but there's a failure to execute? What is something that you would say from a leadership perspective that people are saying that they should do or that they do, but they don't actually execute on? Because you see it from a different perspective. You're on the outside, you come in, you do it, and then you get the opportunity to lead.
And maybe, it's I think the first thing that came to mind when you asked that it wasn't on the question sheet, not that I studied the question sheets to a T, but nonetheless.
They always go where they go.
I hear a lot of people say, we do okay, we do great on the phone. We do great on the phone. We don't need help on phone calls. We just need, the process of how to get people on the phone calls. But then, kind of really diving in and they're, like listening to some of the call tracking systems and everything like that beforehand, it's like, whoa, the first step really, a lot of people know me for the video, email, and the internet process, but the first step really is if you think about, okay, you want to learn the steps to the sale if you're a sales, because knowing how to work with someone face to face, and then a lot of times people from like just go into internet, and then they think, okay, I just got to follow up, but you really need to master that phone call, because as much as I love video email, as much as I love BombBomb and the whole everything like about getting to the phone call, if you don't have those phone skills down, then you could have the best follow up in the world. But if you don't know how to close that phone call right and have it down, then it kind of more and more I start to realize they go hand in hand with each other. So I think that's I hate to say it, but a lot of times it ends up being we just need this, but well, let's track this. Let's look at your actual. Let's listen to your let's just even if we just took a sample right of your live recorded phone calls, inbound or outbound, whatever you have, whatever state you're in, if it's two-way. Listening to that, and then things that I look for are consistency. Consistency and tracking. Okay, out of 10 live phone calls, how many appointments did we set? Because if we're only setting 2 appointments out of 10 live phone calls, then that means you can work all that much, right, to get the 10 live phone calls, and then you only schedule 2 appointments, it flops, right? You have to have that the consistency on both things. So I think that's a big thing. I to a certain degree, I think some people really look at the phone of, oh, I got it mastered. But if you, I mean, I'm sure if anybody that has ever gone into a store's call tracking and listened to real calls, sometimes it is, whew, it is, wow, talk about money left on the table. With just
I hear you. It's all about what's the outcome. What is the outcome that you got, right? Hey, I made it's like we used to have a sales guy. We give him a hard time because he'd be like, man, I talked to a whole bunch of customers today. And we're like, okay, so did you make a bunch of friends or did you sell a bunch of cars, right? And don't get me wrong, it's good to make friends. It's good to make friends. I'm not trying to steer away from that. It's about relationship.
Right. And if I totally am 100% with what you're saying. I think especially people just get caught up on, oh, I got to make 100 phone calls and I'm just gonna make all the calls. But you can make 100 phone calls, but if you don't have any purpose and actual results from those 100 phone calls, then you might as well made them. Right.
There's a lot of other stuff you could have done with your time. No, I think you're right on. So I'm going to ask a question because one came across on social media over here from Lizelle. Says, do you see social media now more of another way to connect with customers versus being a business promotion platform? Do you see it as a better way to connect with customers, or do you see it as a better business promotion? And she says, curious what you think.
Yeah. Well, I guess for me, you know, when I started my company, I have a business Facebook page, but I very rarely, Subi actually set it up for me, and she's gotten on my case a couple times that I don't check it. I don't do anything on there. And I guess the hardest part for me is, and now, you know, we're at that max friends limit, but I think the hardest thing for me is I feel as though because of the algorithms and everything, I have better engagement because I've been engaged with so many people for so long on my personal page. And I don't, you know, me personally, I don't really, you know, I don't follow businesses, I guess, is what I'm getting at. You know, I follow people and their stories, and it happens all the time. Like, you know, there's a gentleman that, you know, I got a friend that I knew in high school had messaged me on Facebook, and he's like, hey, I know you don't sell cars anymore. But he lives in California. He's like, I know you don't sell cars anymore, but I'm looking for a new Ram. Do you know anybody, you know, who can get me a deal? And sure. And just through social, right? And he's a customer of mine too. Like, he uses BombBomb with me, but nonetheless, it's like, boom, you think of somebody instantaneously, right? And it's not like he's constantly pitching me on Facebook, but just because of social, just because of following him personally, when someone on this end says, hey, do you know anybody that sells Rams in California? Boom, this person pops into mind. You know, people like Mike Davenport have it so down where it's like Chevy, and he's across the country, but you still think Chevy and you still think Mike Davenport.
100% of the time. 100% of the time, right? So I'm going to ask one more question that came across. I'm going to shift back to the calls, and I think this is where Jeremy's headed with it. Jeremy Hensel said, what's a good ratio? So I believe what he's asking when he's saying what's a good ratio, sorry, I was skipping around in the comments, is so you're saying, okay, if you made 10 calls, how many appointments? Or if you made 100 calls, how many appointments? You know, connections, I don't know what your take is on it because we're both in BDC. Connections, I think we have less control over. Yes, I know you can steer it and text and get them to call back and video and get them to call back. You and I could debate that, but that's not the question. So if you are making, you know, 10 phone calls or 10 connections, let's call, what is a good ratio?
They got 5 connections. Yeah, right. So what I think the best way to track it is to really start on tracking your inbound. An inbound to me is so similar to an outbound call. The difference is an outbound call, you have to actually put in the work and the follow-up to get the phone up. Sure. So, but the connections are the same. So starting with, I mean, and in that sense, I mean, either which way you look at it, out of 10 live phone calls, you know, successfully, you'll be able to schedule 9 out of 10. I think a good mark would be 8 out of 10 appointments. And, but unfortunately, like when I look at calls and I track certain things, it's out of 10 calls, you're scheduling 4 appointments. So what does that mean? Well, that means that, you know, 2 show up and maybe 1 buys, right? So you want to have if you schedule 8 appointments, then 4 or 5 are going to show up, right? And then 4 or 5, you know, you sell 3 or 4 or 2 at minimum.
I agree with you on that. I think I've always said, and I mean, this is your world, but I think 8 out of 10, I think, has always been a good ratio of live connections. People you're actually communicating and talking to, you should be able to schedule.
That is the key. And yeah, that's definitely the key. And I think, the one of the biggest things that I don't know your take on this, I guess I've never asked you, but I know I see so many people in these sales forums, right? Mm-hmm. How would you have handled this customer? And now I don't know the whole backstory, right? But from what I see, it's not like this text message that's 5 screenshots long or 6 screenshots long where the deal gets lost. Couldn't have been a phone call, right? And so I see that all the time. I believe in text. Yeah. Like texting, I'm good with. But when it comes down to like having to no objections and close down an appointment, a live phone call is always going to be the best route. If I were given the 2, texting is good to get response, to sort of, you know, build rapport a little bit. Sure. But when it gets down to the nitty gritty, like whatever it is, you know, a phone call is going to be best. And we see this all the time too. This is what makes me like think of all these breakup songs. You think everything's going good on your little text message, right? Like you're answering all the questions. You're being a good, you know, a good salesperson and providing great information provider, and then like boom, you just get ghosted, dropped, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, what did I do? Like, what did I say? Like, I thought everything was going good, you know?
Yeah.
So all the more reason you know, use texting as a way to build rapport, but try and get it, like at that point, take it to the next step, take it to a phone call. You know, I always compared it to, in the short period of time before I married my husband and we were dating, you know, I was in the car business and I was 23 at the time. And the last time that I was single was like in my like, you know, years before. So I did the whole online dating, you know, and it was, but I can't help but think like, and this was back in 2011, you know, but it was it's like it goes from a lead to your inbox, you know, to messages in your, Tinder wasn't around back then, but to messages to your inbox, and then to like a text message, and then to a phone call, and then you go out for coffee.
Right.
I can't help but think it is literally the same thing, because think about it, you get somebody's information, they willingly typed it in, by the way, you know, nobody like forced them to punch in the buttons.
It was an accident. I was just messing around online.
Yeah, I know. Gosh, yeah, that 20-digit, you know, yeah, so taking it from almost like a blind date, like they don't know you, you know, they don't know who you are, and then baby steps, right?
Sure.
Baby,
no,
yeah, baby.
I can't help but think when you're talking about when you get ghosted, it's like, and I know the radio stations have to do it where you're at, where they do like second date update, right? It's like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
everything was great, and then I don't know why they wouldn't call me back. Well, you started talking about toenails at dinner. That's why they had, like, that's not normal, right? So, okay,
Right.
so we're kind of winding down here. I'm going to ask you because
So much fun.
what's that? What
I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm having so much fun.
This is fun. Like, this is my world. I love this stuff, and I do with everybody. I sit behind the scenes and take notes because I always collect so much good information. That's for anybody who's watching this, or anybody who ever wants to be a guest on the show. That's my ulterior motive, is I get like one-on-one really good insight into people and just great information to share. So
Yeah.
we all talk about when people are getting into business, right? And you are an entrepreneur and you are going like 90 miles an hour. You are doing so much stuff all the time. And it's so funny. I don't even know what time it is where you're at, right? It's almost 10 o'clock East Coast time. And are you in California?
So I'm in Central.
You're
I'm
Central?
in San Antonio, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm an hour.
Okay, so the thing is, you're still like glowing. You're still fired up. Like, at the end of the day, you spent all day in a store and you're like, hey, let's keep going. And it's because you've found something you're passionate about, you're good at, and you're passionate about it, you're excited about it. So for the people that are watching, and you hear other people say, right, hey, find your passion, and that's going to allow you to be successful. It allows you to keep going. What advice would you give to somebody that is trying to find their passion? What advice would you say to someone that's trying to find what they're good at?
Yeah, you know, oh gosh, I think Steve Jobs has a quote about this too, like where you don't really see the connections in the moment, but sometimes when you look back, right? And with what I do now, I think there's always been a part of me, like even when I was younger and I was into video cameras and, you know, in middle school, like wanting to start a radio station and all these little things like that I can flash back to. So if you want to call my passion like the whole just creative video, that whole realm of things, but it didn't like, I don't know how it, you know, it didn't really, I just kind of blended the two when I got in the car business, you know, like I got in the car business on a whim. I think just about everybody does. Nobody, you know, graduates high school and says, hey, I want to grow up to be a car salesperson or working. But from like the, you know, when I got into automotive and I just saw how amazing of an industry it is in the sense that really there, you know, you can do very well with the right mindset and the right things that you're doing and everything like that. But for someone trying to find their passion, I mean, I think it's Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this too. You know, you don't want to do all right, I'm just going to quit my job and like go all in on this. You know, he suggests working both, right? If you're that into it, something where that blend of like, it doesn't feel like work. Now there's some stuff that I do that does feel like work and I really don't like doing it. And that's something that I've learned too, right? Like we can love what we do, but there's like parts of it that just, I will pay somebody to do it. Like I don't want to do anything when it comes to like QuickBooks or any of that, you know, billing. Yeah, those aren't. Yeah, no, not my thing. So, you know, learning that man, with what I do now, you still got to do things that you don't like, unfortunately. You know, when I sold cars, I hated doing the lot party. That was my most despised thing. And in heels, my goodness, it was real fun. So
the lot party, is that the lot rodeo where you get out and you got to move all the cars around?
Oh yeah, gas them up. Yep.
Oh yeah,
that's a.
I was not a fan. I never had to do it in heels. Not because they forced me to anyway. No, I'm just.
You know, well, with Honda, right? They had the tsunami, and so inventory was just like cut dry.
Right.
So we had to like park the cars. I remember, like as there was like horizontal basically versus vertical to make it look
nose to nose, really deep angle, and make it look like it's full. I know those days. I get it. So when you're talking about the things that you're passionate about and you find them, and I think you bring up a really good point, because a lot of people, and I think Bobby Heron said this a few weeks ago on the show, they said, look, get into something that you like and you can split it up.
Yeah.
You know, you've seen the clip with, who is it, Steve Harvey, that he says, at some point you got to jump, right? You got to jump. But the problem is people jump without a net too early sometimes. And I think that's what you're saying is it's like, look, you got a lot of time between 7 and 11 at night, 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. to work on that. That's the Gary Vaynerchuk deal.
Yeah. You know, I think my transition, I can remember when I sold cars and I was doing, back then it was Eliana with Dealer On, you know, I was doing that cross of like, I'm making my money off of selling cars, but I'm doing a lot of this other stuff just because I like doing it. And that transitioned me into, you know, being a consultant and so forth on this side. But nonetheless, yeah, it's, when I made that jump from, you know, working for a phone training company and then going on my own, like I'm a very motivated, like I can dive deep into it. But I think I was talking to you this before the show, like the growing, like there's things that I'm learning that are like, wow, you know, all the memes that you see about some of the, like the things that the crazy stuff sometimes that you do as an entrepreneur. To the point where people just sometimes think you're crazy, right? But I'm learning, you know, some of the things that it's not, you know, I think I made a post about this too. These memes that I see where it's like you just work with like your coffee right here on your laptop, like out on a beach, like then that's like the entrepreneur lifestyle. But I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, like I don't know. I think anybody just who is maybe doing both right now, which is something, I mean, look at some that I did. It's, I guess for me, and I remember when I made this decision, and like when I made the decision of, okay, I'm going to do this. And this was before, I had quit my job. I had quit my comfortable salary, you know, very comfortable job to make the leap, right? To go full in with the leap. But I remember before that decision, I was talking to someone, and they're like, well, what's another option? Like, are you thinking of like, do you maybe want like, what's your other option? And I said, I don't have another option. I think there is a point when it's almost like an option B or an option C is almost a distraction, you know?
Yeah.
And I think somebody quotes that even, like, there should be no other option, but I think, you know, everybody's going to have their different like turning point on that. Bobby Heron actually, was like, we've known each other for a while, and it was a car drive. She was driving me back to my hotel one night, and she just told me some things that really, really stuck with me. And I've told her, like, a lot of the things that we talked about on that drive is what kind of made me to take the big leap of faith and go on my own. So, but I definitely think it's even as confident as I was, or not confident, but scared at the same time when I made the leap.
Right.
You don't just want to go into it like with no plan. Like, okay, you know, like I love this and I'm just going to start making money off of that. It's so much more than just loving something and trying to find a way to make it what you do. But I will share with you, it is kind of cool, like that with what I do. I can do it right now. I have a computer and I have, Wi-Fi connection, and I can do it in a hotel, or, I tried to stay away, but I did take my computer and stuff when we went to Maui this last summer. So being that flexibility, I guess. And, with my girls, being able to, not have to, if I want to pick them up from school or take them to gymnastics, I just don't schedule things for that time. As long as everything's scheduled, which is a big key of it as well, then it all blends in together, and I mean it all kind of feeds off of each other in the sense that everything that I do, even with work, I have my family, like my husband and my kids, like
sure,
just they're super supportive of it, of it. So that's a big part of it too. Having your support system. So. I love my husband.
That's great. Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. You have to have a really strong support system doing the amount of work that you do. So as we come to a close here, do me a favor. What's the best way for people, because you're going 90% of your day, you're going nonstop, back and forth. What's the best way if somebody wants to get a hold of you and to connect with you, either on a personal level or certainly on a business level also?
I will give, just probably just my Facebook. That's my personal Facebook. Yeah, personal Facebook. I'm thinking I'm probably going to be tagged in this. So,
yeah,
I would give you that's, it comes from so many different directions. And I hate to say, but, it's almost like there's so much stuff that I haven't read. I mean, even you saw it a little bit, like you probably messaged me and it took a while to get back to you. It took a while. But as much as I can, and sometimes people message me like at 2 in the morning, and it just happens to be like in the moment when the thing pops up right in my face, and I'll handle. But yeah, Facebook. Facebook is probably the best way, or LinkedIn. Although I'll be honest, I don't really check LinkedIn much.
All right, so you guys heard it here: Facebook or LinkedIn. Lizelle says you need shirts. #BombBombMom. You need to get those off on the presses. So. Elise, thank you so much for spending the time with my audience today, spending the time with me and sharing your live leadership lesson. I know heavy in automotive and BDC space, and just really, really good insight into what you do and in that portion of the business. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and take us out now. So for everybody that tuned in, this is another live leadership lesson with my friend Elise Kephart. She's absolutely awesome. Like she said, connect with her on Facebook. Do me a favor, if you're gaining something out of these episodes, please throw some thumbs up in there. Make sure that you share the videos, share them in your connected groups, share them with your friends, share them with people that it will help to grow. And then one last time, please do me a favor and connect with me at leadtheteam.tv. Subscribe to the YouTube channel there, because I would love to continue the conversation after the video. And I'll tell you what, until we speak next, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. We'll talk to you soon, everybody.